Okay, so next we can kind of get a different visualization of that sternocleidomastoid. So very much from like the back of the head here to the collarbone. And so sternum of the collarbone, and then mastoid, all right, of the skull. So it's going to be kind of in the bottom area of that skull there. 2 attachment points here. Then we also have our trapezius muscle. So whenever you hear someone talk about their traps, that's the trapezius. You have deep traps and higher traps, but we're just going to call it all one trap. And it's named that way because it looks like a trapezoid. All right, trapezius traps help raise your shoulders. And then we have our deltoid. It's going to be on the outside of your shoulder bone. So you'll feel like your acromion of the scapula kind of poking up. That's that pokey part of your shoulder. The deltoid is your shoulder muscle next to that, all right, attaching to that acromion, okay? So your deltoid is going to help abduct your arm. And so by abduct, I mean take it away, move your arms away. So kind of like shoulder raises, you know, taking your hands down by your legs and moving them away from the body, abducting them from your body. Then we have your latissimus dorsi. So think of this as your major back pulling muscle when you're like rowing. So this will help adduct and extend your arm like a power stroke. Then we have our pectoralis major. This is just your pecs. So if you ever hear about someone doing a chest workout, they're usually targeting your pectoralis major. There is also a pectoralis minor as well as another one, but we're not worried about it. We're just going to call it the pectoralis major. Then we have our rectus abdominis. So your rectus abdominis is sheathed behind the aponeuroses right here, but you can kind of see it does have muscle fibers. It's just running up and down the abdomen, and so up and down. So the reason you have these divots is that's the rectus abdominis. So it's running up and down, but the aponeuroses kind of cuts it up. So you have rectus abdominis, which will help flex your vertebral column. So think about that as like curling up in a ball, like crunching, compressing your abdomen. And then we have our external obliques. So your external obliques are going to be running diagonally more so. And so you can kind of see it diagonally here. It's up and down with the rectus abdominis, and our external oblique is more diagonal. And so your external obliques are going to help also flex your vertebral column and compress your abdomen, but more of like a little bit more sideways. Then we have internal obliques, which are going to be a layer below the external, so external on the outside, internal on the inside, running the exact opposite direction, so perpendicular to the external obliques. Do the same basic function as those external ones, just helping with a different direction. And then we have the transversus abdominis, which is even more deep to the external obliques. So your transversus abdominis is going to run perpendicular to your rectus abdominis. So think about terms for perpendicularity of abdominis muscles together. So the rectus abdominis is up and down, transversus abdominis is transverse or perpendicular to that. External oblique is diagonal, and the internal oblique, which is deeper than the external oblique, runs perpendicular and a different diagonal. So we're covering all of our bases here, being able to crunch our abs. Then we have our external intercostals. These are going to be involved in breathing, so helping contract your ribs and pull them away so that we can inflate our lungs with air. So external intercostals helping with inspiration. Now we talk about our arms. So only a few that we need to learn about here, and most of them are going to be reviewed from what you might have heard in your daily lingo. So of course we have our biceps. Okay, so we have our biceps brachii here. You don't need to know whether it's long or short head. Just know that when we're pointing to this muscle here, we're talking about our biceps, and it's called biceps because there's 2 of them, bi. So we have the short head and long head. Brachialis is going to be underneath that muscle, serving as an attachment point to the ulna and the ulna and the radius. So it's going to be kind of moving your humerus to the ulna and radius, helping as a connection point. Fun fact for you, for those that like to lift weights, your brachialis muscle will tire out quicker than your biceps brachii muscle. So doing a full bicep curl will target your brachialis, but that will tire out before your biceps brachii. So doing a half curl, starting at a halfway inflection point, and then doing the rest of the curl, you'll target just your biceps brachii for an isolation of this larger bicep. That's how you get big biceps. So for anyone that was curious. Then we have our triceps brachii. You're going to have 3 sets of these, right? 3 in the set of triceps, I should say. So 3. We have a lateral head and long head, and there's a little mini one as well, but we're not worried about it. Just know that the back side of your arm on the other side of your humerus will be the triceps, whereas the front side will be the biceps. Anterior biceps, posterior triceps. And then for our forearm, there is a large group of muscles that we're just going to collectively call flexors and extensors. So when we're looking at the palmar view, so in this our traditional anatomical view with our palms facing forward, we're looking at our flexors. So think about it this way: when you have that anatomical view and then you make a ball with your fist, you're starting with it flat, palms forward, but then you make a ball with your fist, you're flexing your wrist muscles to pull your fingers together. And so those are your flexors in your wrist, all right, or around your ulna and radius, so your flexor group. And then we have our extensors on the other side. So on the dorsal or posterior view, we're going to have our extensors. So think about this as starting with a ball, a fist, and then extending your fingers out. We're extending our fingers. We're using our extensors of our wrist to do that. So if you're looking at a picture and you see the dorsal view or the posterior view like this, then you know that we're looking at extensors. If you're seeing a anterior view or just like this frontal view plane, you're looking at, the biceps or the flexors. Now when it comes to the legs, these get pretty clumped pretty quick, so don't get bogged down with it too much. Just try to break it down into regions. So first we can start with the iliopsoas. So the iliopsoas is kind of part of this psoas and iliacus group. So we'll collectively just call it the iliopsoas. I have another picture here. I can just show you really quick. So this is basically that. So we're looking at someone's left leg here. Right leg, sorry. Someone's right leg here. So this is all the quads. You have your iliopsoas, which is these two different groups here that are going to be working together to flex the hip. So think about this as bringing your hips in. Let me go back quick. We have our gluteus maximus, which is going to be your large butt muscle here. Going to be feeling really nice to massage it up at the top here, where we have a lot of pressure coming down from our lower back as upright walking animals. So this gluteus maximus and gluteus medius toward the top here by the crest of the ilium is going to have really nice massage points. A lot of pressure being pushed into there. So gluteus maximus is right here, and gluteus medius is kind of cut here, but you'll see both of them in that area as well. Then looking at our quads, we have this group of three that we need to know. We have rectus femoris, which is the major quad muscle coming down in the middle. Vastus lateralis on the outside, so this is the right leg lateral on the outside. Actually here ACL was the anterior collateral ligament. We're looking at the vastus lateralis on the outside, whereas the ACL would be more in the anterior side on the front here. Then we have our vastus medialis on the inside of the leg, medial. All right, so medialis, rectus femoris, lateralis. And then we have some adductors on the inside here, our gracilis muscle and our adductor longus. So our gracilis and our adductor longus are going to adduct the thigh, as well as the adductor magnus here, which is not circled, but those three together are going to help adduct the thigh. And then we have our tensor fascia lati here, and this is going to help abduct the thigh. So pulling your leg away from your midpoint is the tensor fascia lati, abducting the thigh away from the body. And then our sartorius, our adductor longus, gracilis, and adductor magnus are going to add our legs together to the midpoint. Okay. Then we have the sartorius muscle, and this is just going to be involved in flexing the hip and knee. So if you're rotating your leg around, you're using that sartorius muscle. So it kind of gets lumped in with these quad muscles, but going more toward the middle, allowing you to flex your knee outward. Let's see. Here we go. We got some more adductors here. This is looking at that same leg, just taking the quads away to see the attachment points here for the adductor groups. Then we have some hamstrings down here. So we have our semimembranosus and semitendinosus, as well as our gracilis. So these are going to be kind of your hamstring muscles. So they'll not the gracilis, but the semitendinosus and membranosus will help flex the knee and extend the leg at the hip. All right. And then you all have your biceps femoris, which is lumped into those hamstring groups. perform the same actions as the semimembranosus and tendinosus. So the biceps femoris is going to be the more outside lateral hamstring. Semitendinosus will be the middle one. Membranosus be the lateral one next to the gracilis. So lots of leg muscles. And obviously, we're not making you memorize all of them, but it'll be very specific when we're looking at it on the quiz. A little bit more useful diagram than such as this. So looking at this one, this is a pretty good one. You can kind of look going in from out, or in to out. Gracilis, adductor magnus, adductor longus. Okay, these are all your adductors. And then you have your sartorius. And then we have our quadriceps, so quad being 4. You know, we have our rectus femoris, we have our vastus lateralis, and our vastus medialis. And then technically the tensor fasciae latae is kind of in there as well, but this is just its own on this diagram. And then our iliopsoas group. So you kind of just group it into regions. Inside of the leg, we're looking at these adductors. Outside the leg, we're looking at these extensors. Toward the upper part of the leg, we're looking at these flexors. All right. So here's another one of the gluteus maximus, nice big one, and gluteus medius more toward the top. All right, and then you do have some that are underneath that. Piriformis is a really nice massage point for people that have a lot of tension in their lower back as well, attaching to that sacrum there. And then lastly, we have some lower leg muscles to learn about. So looking at the anterior view here, we have your shin muscle. This is your tibialis anterior. There's obviously more going on here. Just know that this is the tibialis anterior. Okay, anterior view, anterior muscle, tibialis anterior. Looking at a posterior view, if we cut the gastrocnemius, we're going to see our soleus, which is a nice deep calf muscle. But looking at them when they're not cut, we can kind of see that it would be the gastrocnemius being covered all of this. So the gastrocnemius is your calf muscle. So it'll help plantar flex your foot. And the same thing with that soleus, which is a little bit deeper. So you got 3 calf muscles, technically just 2. We're just going to say the lateral and medial head are together the same. So you're just responsible for knowing gastrocnemius and the soleus for the calf. And then for the shin, just know that it's the tibialis anterior. And that'll do it for our muscle lab. And I shall chat with y'all soon.